Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk going up on a Thursday. That's not the song, but that's how we're starting today's program on 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our live streaming video. We are on YouTube at 580 Sports Talk. That's the name of the channel. We're on Facebook, WIBW News. Dan Lucero, Brendan Wrzinski hanging with you for the next 2 hours, typically a 3-hour program. Today, we get to knock off an hour early because we've got Kansas State basketball, a doubleheader tonight from Bramlage Coliseum. As first, it's the K-State women taking on Creighton, 5:30 tip-off time, which means we'll break away at 5 o'clock, hand things off to the K-State Sports Network for pregame coverage. Then, once the women are done, the 10th-ranked team in the country give way to the K-State men, who host LSU in a nifty non-conference matchup tonight at the Octagon.
Speaking of Creighton, last night, the Creighton men were on FS1 playing against Houston Christian, coached by former Emporia State coach Craig Doty. But
that's right.
More importantly, that meant that Topeka's own Elijah Brooks was on cable, basic cable last night for Elijah.
Hey now.
Transferred in from North Dakota this offseason. Pretty fired up for that. Got the start, I believe.
Yeah, really
I turned
cool.
on a few minutes late, but I was excited to see Elijah out there.
Yeah, very cool. The pride of the Chargers at Topeka West. Very cool.
Still one of my favorite local players I've ever covered. Loved his game.
Awesome career too at
Mr. Basketball in the state
West.
of Kansas.
Yes, absolutely. So we got plenty of local sports flavor coming on today's show. Rick Peterson's going to join us bottom of this hour for the local sports spotlight. We'll talk about sectional playoff football as we continue to narrow down the number of teams who are still playing in the state of Kansas. A couple of Shawnee County teams, 3 of them to be exact, are still active. We'll talk about those matchups coming up. Also get some thoughts on Washburn athletics with the great Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. That's coming up at the bottom of this hour. Bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, Paul Myerberg will join us for the Big 12 football breakdown. We'll get Paul's unparalleled insight into the Big 12 conference, a look back at KU's win over Iowa State, a look ahead to K-State's contest against Arizona State this Saturday, as well as KU's game against BYU. And speaking of that K-State game against Arizona State, I made Brendan promise that he would remind me to give tickets away to that game today, and we're going to do it. Again, we've only got 2 hours in which to do it, but we're going to do it. We are going to give away a pair of tickets to Bill Snyder Family Stadium for Saturday's contest between the Wildcats and the Sun Devils.
Or Dan has to join the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
I have to.
We needed a consequence, and I've come up with one. You have to become a Pastafarian.
we can maybe workshop that during one of our breaks. If you are missing Mitch Holtis, because typically Mitch joins us in the 5 o'clock hour today. We don't have a 5 o'clock hour today, but don't despair. Mitch is going to join us tomorrow on the show. You're going to hear the great voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holtis, join us tomorrow at 5:25. So everything you would hear in the Thursday edition of the show, you're going to hear eventually. We've got Rick Peterson, Paul Myerberg today. Mitch Holtis moved to tomorrow's program here on 580 Sports Talk. So just 2 hours today. Long way to go. Short time to get there. We've got plenty of Chiefs to talk about. The matchup, I think, is the defining matchup of Sunday's game between the Chiefs and the Bills, and how the Chiefs handle it, I think, will determine how they come out of the game. And Bill Barnwell today wrote at ESPN.com a column that asks the question, can the Chiefs run the table? And where do they stand amongst other teams that have started their seasons 9-0? How did they get there? Where are they going? And can they get to 17-0? Now, I'm not as much interested in the answer to that question, because I think Andy Reid would say the same. You can't get to 17-0 if you don't get to 10-0. You don't get to 10-0 if you don't beat the Bills on Sunday. But there were some statistical trends that Bill Barnwell pointed out in his article that I thought were really interesting, and maybe not the kind of numbers you would expect to hear about this edition of the Chiefs. Some of them are advanced metrics. Some of them are very simple numbers. But the question I have is, are these trends from what is essentially the first half of the Chiefs season likely to continue, or are they trends that the Chiefs can reverse? And if indeed they are reversed, because these are not trends, these are not stats that belie a 9-0 football team. If these trends are reversed, just how good can the Chiefs be if they're able to make some adjustments and perform at a higher level on certain sides of the ball in certain situations? Where the Chiefs can improve in the second half. We will get to that. We got what is wrong with you. We've got a little either or over under. We'll do a brief preview of K-State hoops tonight. Again, only 2 hours with you today. We'll give way to the K-State Sports Network at 5 o'clock. So thank you for being with us here until 5 o'clock today on 580 Sports Talk. You can join the program with your own thoughts, your comments, your questions, your concerns, your compliments. 2 ways to do that. You can text the program. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. That is 785-272-9429. Text the program throughout. The Top City Metal Supply text line is open to you. Also, if you are watching us on YouTube right now, again, the channel name is 580 Sports Talk. If you're watching us on YouTube, there is a live chat feature, and you can type your thoughts, your questions, comments, concerns, compliments into the live chat. Interact with us, interact with your fellow listeners throughout the show today.
We've already got a James Sosinski reference in the YouTube chat. So.
That's how you know it's going to be a good day.
Yeah. Remember, folks, there have been more points scored in NCAA tournament Final Fours by former KU football tight end James Sosinski than anyone who has ever played for the University of Missouri. Remember that.
How is that possible? Surely Missouri has been to a Final Four.
I'm so glad you asked.
Surely the Missouri Tigers, such a proud, tradition-rich basketball program, have played in at least one Final Four in their history.
You would think, and yet you would also be wrong. They have not even once been to the Final Four. And it, frankly, folks, is extremely funny.
I will apologize to our Mizzou fan listeners. Brendan will not, but I will.
I will not apologize for anything.
So text us 785-272-9429, Top's email supply text line. Jump on into the YouTube live chat. Hang out with us over the next 2 hours here on 580 Sports Talk. Before I dig into what I think is the most important matchup in Chiefs-Bills on Sunday at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York, I wanted to ask you this question, Brendan. And I think that most Chiefs fans would answer this question with a yes. Because if the answer is yes, it's not particularly flattering to a Bills team that is still seeking its first championship. But are these regular season games against the Chiefs the Bills Super Bowl? Like, is this the biggest game? Like, every game is a big game for the Chiefs because they get everybody's best shot. Matt Verderam joined us on Monday, our NFL insider, and mentioned that. The Chiefs get everybody's best. The target on their back could not be bigger. So every time a team with even moderate Super Bowl aspirations plays the Chiefs, it's a big game. It's one you circle on the NFL calendar. This one is the biggest one because of where it happens to fall on the calendar. Like if you'd flip-flop this game and maybe the Baltimore game, then we'd say the Baltimore game was the biggest game of the year for the Chiefs. But here we are. It's the 10th game of the year for the Chiefs, and they've won their previous 9, and they're against the Bills team that only has 2 losses on the season. So this is the biggest game of the year for the Chiefs. I'm not dismissing that part of the equation, but the Bills always seem to get up for the regular season games against the Chiefs, even in a way that, like, Cincinnati's had good regular season success against the Chiefs in recent years, but it feels differently when it's the Bills. Is this the Bills Super Bowl, or these regular season games, especially if they get them at home?
I think it used to be. And maybe for some, like maybe for a younger, I know Keon Coleman's not going to play, but like for a Keon Coleman, maybe because you get drafted by this Buffalo team that is so good and so close. And yet you keep hearing they keep losing to the Chiefs. They can't beat the Chiefs. They can't beat the Chiefs. Maybe for a guy like that, or a newcomer, or a guy who hasn't had that kind of heartbreak. But I don't know. And I don't want to buy in too far in the other direction. Josh Allen was asked about, does this game mean anything more during his media availability this week? And you said no. You said no. This is regular game. It counts the same as week 1. It counts the same as week 18. It's week 11. It's our 10th game of the year. And I think that is putting on a facade. I don't think that is true. And I think Josh Allen, if he was being 100% honest with you, would also say, no, I was lying. This game does mean more. But I do think for the guys who have been the core of that team for years now, starts with the head coach, but also the quarterback, the Dawson Knoxes of the world, Deion Dawkins, these guys who have been with this team, been part of that core for a long time. I would guess it means a little something different because they've won this game. They have beaten the Chiefs in the regular season before multiple times.
In fact, the last 3 regular season meetings, so the Mahomes versus Allen series, if you will, Mahomes has the all-time lead 4-3, but the last 3 regular season games have been Bills wins. Back on October 10th of 2021, in fact, the Bills hammered the Chiefs at Highmark or at Arrowhead.
Yeah, the crazy thing is all 3 of those wins were at Arrowhead.
Yes, came into Arrowhead and blew the doors off the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football in 2021. Absolutely hammered them. It was a game that they led 31-13 after a Micah Hyde pick 6 midway through the third quarter, and the fourth quarter never got competitive. 2 years ago, that was the game where Buffalo got the touchdown from Dawson Knox with 1:04 to go, and then Teron Johnson picked off Mahomes to seal a 24-20 Bills win. Last season was the Kadarius Toney offside game. But again, the Bills scored late. They got the go-ahead field goal from Tyler Bass with 1:57 to go. And it does stand in such stark contrast. In those last 2 regular season games, the Bills have made the play at the end to win, and the Chiefs have not. But in the playoffs, the roles are extremely reversed, with the Chiefs making the play that they have to make. Or in last year's case, I suppose it's Tyler Bass missing the kick he had to make. No, not an easy task in January in Buffalo with the wind blowing. But that's what's so fascinating to me is that in the regular season, the Bills have been so on point against the Chiefs and made every play you have to make, executed on all 3 phases of the game to beat the Chiefs. And then they just don't do that in the playoffs. So I guess maybe part of that is going on the road, knowing how hard it is to go to Arrowhead and win. Mm-hmm. Maybe the Bills' focus has been that much sharper for those games, but it's hard to figure. It's the last 6 meetings between these 2 teams have been split 3-3, and the Bills have won the ones that didn't matter, and the Chiefs have won the ones that did.
And that's why I think for those guys who have been a part of this team for a long time, speaking of Buffalo as this team, I don't think it has probably quite the same juice because to a degree, you're at the same point that the Chiefs are, right? That your season and what people are going to remember begins in January. People will remember the Bills and this era of Bills football either because they broke through and they did what those Jim Kelly teams were not able to do, what no team in Bills history has been able to do, what even Josh Allen has not been able to do to this point in his career, and that's win a championship, win multiple playoff games, make it back to the Super Bowl, beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in a playoff game. This game is a footnote. It's wow, isn't it crazy? The Bills have won 4 regular season games in a row over the Chiefs. Wow, how interesting. Anyway, Chiefs 21, Bills 14, Chiefs to the Super Bowl. Like that those are the games that matter the most. And I would imagine Allen specifically, I mean, we're talking top down here, knows in his mind, like his legacy is not built on winning in November. His legacy is not built on winning in October. It's about winning in the postseason and winning when it matters most. So I do think for those guys, it probably feels a little different. Now, if you're asking me Buffalo Bills fandom writ large, oh, it's bigger than the Super Bowl. This is the World Cup final on the final day of the Olympics with the Super Bowl halftime show. I mean, this is bigger than anything because those folks are starving. Those folks are the 2 a.m. you up texts of fan bases. They are starving. They are thirsty for something meaningful and something against this Chiefs team. And if you don't believe me, go check your social media accounts at the end of a game. If the Bills win, you're going to see the most heinous stuff you've ever seen said about Patrick Mahomes, Brittany Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, Andy Reid's family. You're going to see personal addresses of like the communication staff of the Chiefs. It's going to be bleak and really, really gross. That's how the fan bases react to this game. And I'm not trying to call out all Bills fans. You're not all like that. Every fan base has fans like that, but you understand the point I'm making. I do feel like this Bills team will approach it differently, though. And I think they kind of have to. Like, I think they're at a point where if they don't have perspective, I don't think they're ever going to get over that hump.
Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of truth to that. Let me then pivot to the question I have about this matchup specifically, because I think that this is going to be what defines the game. Patrick Mahomes has been sacked 8 times the last 2 games. Against Tampa Bay, most of that damage was done in the first half, and most of it was done by the interior defensive line of the Buccaneers. Vita Vea, Elijah Cansey played a really outstanding first half. Chiefs bowed up on offense, bowed up front in the second half, and I don't think Mahomes was sacked in the second half. If he was sacked, it was only once. Last week, Broncos pinned their ears back, got after Mahomes steadily for 4 quarters, and sacked him 4 more times. The Bills as a team have 25 sacks in their first 10 games this year. This, to me, is the ball game. It's the Chiefs pass rush, or rather, it's the Buffalo pass rush against the Chiefs front 5. And unlike, it's a little more similar to Denver than to Tampa Bay because the edge threat is the more significant threat, I think, from the Buffalo pass rush. Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa have both had big games, again, in the regular season, but big moments in big games. I think they both have interceptions of Patrick Mahomes, if I recall correctly, which is a wild thing to say about a pair of edge rushers, but I think Rousseau and Epinesa, I know Epinesa does. Epinesa, I think, picked Mahomes on the first drive of the game last season. So those are the 2 primary edge rushers for the Bills, and they have combined for 10.5 sacks this season. Still got Von Miller, even though he hasn't done anything since coming off of suspension as far as production, but he's still there. He still has shown that he can be a man for the big occasion. Ed Oliver's still there in the middle. So for me, this is kind of where this game for the Chiefs is going to be won or lost. Can they do a better job of keeping Patrick Mahomes upright? Because if they do, having Juju Smith-Schuster back in all likelihood to pair with DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce should allow the Chiefs passing game to have its most, the fullest dimensions that it can possibly have, considering who's currently healthy. And so I think the Chiefs should have a lot of success moving the ball. It's not a great Buffalo secondary, though it has played well. It's not it's not one full of stars. I think the opportunity is going to be there for the Chiefs to make a bunch of plays through the air for Mahomes to have a big game. And we talk about it ad nauseum. When Patrick Mahomes is an underdog, he always shows up. He always plays well. Chiefs are 2.5-point underdogs in this game. The only thing keeping me really confident from thinking that, yes, Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to light up the Bills is that pass rush, because it's been 2 weeks of struggles for that front 5 for Kansas City. And if they struggle again, it could be a long day.
I would agree with that. I think that's totally fair. So over time, the general consensus for forever has been, home field advantage is about 2.5 to 3 points to the spread. That has kind of shrunk over time. It's now more assumed that it's about 1.5 to 2 points. So you're essentially saying this game is a toss-up. And look, if you're going to get beaten up front, you're going to lose those toss-up matchups more often than not. There's a reason why all the old heads and then people who say, man, I hate to sound like an old head, but tell you that the games are won and lost in the trenches. I think Gregory Rousseau is the more dangerous player. Epinesa's played well. I think Rousseau is just a better overall player, maybe a more threatening player, because I think he's a better athlete overall. He also does have an interception. He had a crazy interception, if I remember correctly. It was just a really smart play. He dropped back, kind of tipped the ball to himself, if I'm remembering the play correctly, when he intercepted Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So that's the one that concerns me the most. Von Miller is a shell of himself at this point. That's probably your best bet for Buffalo overall, aside from just Josh Allen going crazy, which he is wont to do. He is certainly capable of doing that, has many times over the course of his career. I like the Chiefs in this matchup overall. I think the Chiefs are playing really well, and I think the Chiefs have too many answers in the passing game for Buffalo. Now, the important thing is you got to get the ball out quickly, because you do not want Rousseau and Epinesa and Ed Oliver in the middle and all these. And I think Oliver's going to struggle against this Chiefs interior with how well they're playing. But you can't let those guys tee off on your quarterback. It's a lot of the basic keys that we get to every single Friday. Get ahead of the sticks. Don't put yourself in obvious passing downs or, obvious 5-step, 7-step drop downs anyway on, 3rd down or 4th down and long. Stay ahead of the sticks. Have plenty of options. Kind of a big reason why Juju is a big deal in this game, even if he's not going to play a ton of snaps. And it's sort of what we talked about yesterday, that he opens up things for everybody else. But he is also probably your best short, just, quick pass option next to Kelsey. Like, who is the next best option for just like quick choice route go? 1-2, hit the top of your drop and go. I mean, I don't know who you would say is the best option other than that. It's kind of been Justin Watson in recent weeks, honestly. It's been throwing me off because they keep having him run Kelsey routes, and I think, wait, that's a tall white guy, but it's not Kelsey. What the heck? So it's throwing me off which one it is. So I think that's why Juju is a big key in this game. Get those quick routes going. I think we see a lot of Samaje Perine in this game, honestly, to help out in the backfield pass pro and also just be a quick check down option.
Some breaking Chiefs news before we get to our first time out here. They've just released the Thursday participation report, and there's some good news on here, and there is some concerning news on here. First, good news. Juju Smith-Schuster remains on track to play on Sunday. He is a full participant coming off of the hamstring injury.
I was so ready for you to say, actually, he's not playing, and for me to feel like an ass.
No,
so thank you.
No.
Thank you, Chiefs.
Juju upgraded from limited participant yesterday to full participant today.
Awesome.
New to the injury report today, limited with a left knee injury, Harrison Butker. That kind of came out of nowhere. He was not on the participation report yesterday. Something must have happened at practice today. Now, Butker, obviously a right-footed kicker, left knee's the plant leg, but that's going to be something that is worth monitoring. We'll hear Andy Reid tomorrow. He'll talk to the media extremely briefly, his usual 90-second press availability on Friday. And I'm sure he'll have something to say about it, particularly if it affects Butker's availability in tomorrow's practice. Now, it could just be that he tweaked something, had to come off early, and they had to put him on the list because he finished practice before everybody else, and it's nothing to worry about. But if it were nothing, he would have finished practice and he wouldn't be on the list. So a potential development.
I'll let you know. I've got actually exclusive audio of it's already been out there of how Andy Reid is going to approach that question tomorrow. Let me play it for you. Oh, we'll see.
That is, I mean, I admire the effort. You get an A for effort there.
I got about a half a syllable and then said, nope, the voice isn't going to work. So let's just use the words and go on.
That's good self-awareness on your part. A for effort and for self-awareness on the Andy Reid impersonation.
And D for effort.
As for the execution is where you're going to lose points. Yeah. We're going to take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll talk some more Chiefs a little bit later on. We got Rick Peterson of TopSports.News for the local sports spotlight coming up in a bit. But first, K-State's on the hardwood tonight. We have some thoughts on that. Plus, I thought a very funny text from the Top Email Supply text line. We'll get to that when we come back here on 580 Sports Talk. So remember when we went to break and mentioned that Harrison Butker was on the participation report, limited with a left knee injury today, and said, hey, it could be nothing. It isn't nothing. From Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker is expected to miss 3 to 4 weeks and is likely headed to IR with a left knee injury. The Chiefs will have a new kicker on Sunday. No Harrison Butker for a month.
Luckily for the Chiefs, Matthew Wright is currently on injured reserve.
Yeah, they
will not be able to sign him.
Can't go get him. Man. Look, the Chiefs have obviously played a ton of close games this year, and Butker has been part of the difference in a lot of those close games. So not to have him, that's a blow. That's one of the best, most reliable kickers in the NFL, and that is a blow to the Chiefs in games that project to be close, like the one they're going to play on Sunday.
Yeah, that's that's significant. I mean, he's the best kicker in the NFL right now. That's dang. Do we know anything about how he tweaked it?
We don't, but we do know the name of the new kicker. Tom Pelissero is all over this.
Wow.
Spencer Schrader, former Notre Dame Fighting Irish, being signed off the Jets practice squad. And Spencer Schrader, who has played in one NFL game with the Colts week 1 of this season and made all 3 of his extra points.
Okay.
And kicked 5 touchbacks.
Okay.
He will be the Chiefs kicker for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, the Jets had an expendable kicker spot because they signed Anders Carlson the other day. I'm glad the Chiefs didn't sign him. I'll tell you that much.
Spencer Schrader actually spent 4 seasons at South Florida USF and transferred and took his bonus year at Notre Dame. That was last season. He was 61 of 62 on extra points. Only missed 2 extra points in his entire college career. Of course, they're gimmies in college. 15 of 22 on field goals. 43 of 62 in his career. Career long of 54. So, and then again, 5 touchbacks on 5 kickoffs with the Colts week 1 after Matt Gay was hurt. So big enough leg to execute that part of the equation. But if you're a Chiefs fan, you probably have taken it for granted for as long as Butker has been on the team. You line up for a field goal. Yeah, this guy's got it. Yeah, he'll take care of business. It will be strange to not feel that way for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, a lot of going for it on 4th down, I bet.
I wonder if that changes.
Yep.
I wonder if that changes the mindset a little bit for Andy Reid.
Based on the last time the Chiefs needed a backup kicker, I bet it does. Ooh, you know what else this might mean? We're going to see Justin Reid on kickoff?
I don't know, man. If Schrader's got a big enough leg to boot it through the back of the end zone, just let him do that.
Why not kick it short and try to keep him short of the 30?
From Ian Rappaport, more details. Harrison Butker is expected to have surgery to trim his meniscus in his left knee. That's why he's headed to IR, though he will be back for the home stretch and the playoffs.
Oh, good thing it's just a trim.
Yeah, it's a minor procedure, but it is something that is going to cost Harrison Butker time. So, breaking news. You're learning about that with us here on 580 Sports Talk. Harrison Butker headed to injured reserve. And if he goes injured reserve, that's 4 games on the shelf. Regardless of when those games come, that is 4 games out for Harrison Butker. So he will miss the Bills game. He will miss the Panthers game. I don't think that's going to come down to a kicker, if we're being frank. It shouldn't. I also don't think the Raiders game is going to come down to a kicker. The Chargers game might, but that's a home game for the Chiefs. So that's the breaking news. That Harrison Butker, I don't know if that injury was suffered today or if it just came up today. I had noticed throughout the season, watching him kick, it looked like he was kind of buckling on that left knee a little bit. Like, you go back and you watch his kicks, it's looked different this year, him kicking the ball. So it's going to be a trim of the left meniscus, not his kicking leg, his plant leg, and he'll miss 3 to 4 weeks, but likely to be back for the home stretch in the playoffs. That is per the reporting of Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport. Spencer Schrader signed off the Jets practice squad. He will kick for the Chiefs on Sunday in Buffalo. We got to take a break. We'll be joined by Rick Peterson at TopSports.News coming up next for the local sports spotlight on 580 Sports Talk. Every Thursday at this time on 580 Sports Talk, we are joined in the Floating Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. This is the local sports spotlight on the program. Pistol covers all things Shawnee County High School sports and Washburn University athletics for TopSports.News. And he joins us now here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol, can you believe we're already to the sectional round of the high school football playoffs?
Yeah, it's going quick, and it's an exciting time of year because you're down to the very, very elite teams now.
You certainly are, and there are three of them in this county that are playing onward in the sectional round. We'll start with the game that we're going to have for you right here tomorrow night, 580 Preps Playoff Football here on 580 WIBW. I'm making the trek down the turnpike to Goddard District Stadium to see the Seaman Vikings in Class 5A West sectional action taking on the Eisenhower Tigers. Get to see the two best wide receivers in the state, I think you would say, with Briar Finley of Seaman and Carter Pabst, who now has the all-time individual record for touchdown receptions in Kansas state history for Eisenhower. So that'll be a fun back and forth to see. What do you think this game winds up as? Do you think this would be a pretty high-scoring affair? How do you think Jared Swafford and the Vikings need to play this if they want to advance to the sub-state round?
Well, I think it's going to be it could definitely be a shootout type game. It really might come down to the team that's able to play the best defense. I've been so amazed with the stats of Max Huston and Briar Finley. And then I'm looking at the Eisenhower stats, and it's like, dang, they're right up there, if not a little better. I mean, I wasn't sure anybody could match the Seaman duo stats, but obviously the Tigers have.
Yeah, Briar Finley has 21 touchdown receptions on the year. That's a monster number. Carter Pabst has 26. So that's remarkable production from those two wide receivers. Going to be a fun one. We'll have it right here, 7:00 kick, right here on 580 WIBW. Pregame with the 580 Preps Coaches Club, 6:00 tomorrow night, and that will take you up to the kickoff. Hayden Wildcats also moving on in Class 3A. They've got Perry Lecompton in a rematch in sectional round play. They put a 50-burger on Perry Lecompton, but I'll tell you what, Mike Paramore's team seems to really be improving, peaking at the right time, and Hayden's got to be on guard for the underdogs.
Well, I'm sure that's what Bill Arnold's telling his team each and every day. You know, that all that first win means at this point is that they're really going to try to, get some revenge. So they'll need to be ready. This is a Perry Lecompton program that it's been in the state championship game before, knows what it's like to peak late. So, yeah, I expect Hayden to win this game, but I'm looking for a much tougher battle.
Also still alive in the high school football playoffs, the Rossville Bulldogs, who've now won 7 in a row after their 0-3 start. They go up to Jackson Heights, take on a 10-0 Cobras team, traditionally excellent in that class, coached by Caleb Wick. Different looking matchup. We've never seen Rossville, Jackson Heights this deep into November because Rossville, of course, is new to Class 1A. How do you handicap this one? And what do you make of Rossville's improvement? What has been the biggest reason you've seen for how they've been able to get here after an 0-3 start? Yes, but an 0-3 start against a really tough schedule.
Yeah, and that's the difference. I mean, they got some really good tests from 3 really good teams to open the season, and once they got into district, it's like, now, okay, this is ours now, and they've shown that with their scores. And you asked me to handicap it. I think Rossville can play with anybody in that class, and they'll be on the road, so they'll have to win on the road. But I really think Derek Hamas's team can play with anybody. And, Derek Hamas has a handful of state titles that show that.
Rick Peterson is our guest. He covers all things high school sports in the city and the county and all things Washburn sports over at TopSports.News. That's where you can find all of his great work. You can also follow him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. He joins us at this time every single week for our local sports spotlight on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Let's flip over to some Washburn sports. Pistol, one more football game this season. It is coming up on Saturday from oh-so-scenic Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Washburn obviously not going to play in the postseason this year. That goes without saying. But this matchup against Northeastern State, how important would it be for this program, for the staff, for these guys to end this year on a high note?
Immensely important. And Coach Schurig and I talked about that yesterday. You just want these guys to end the season with something to feel good about. They got a ton of these guys coming back. You want to, send the seniors out on a positive note, but you also want to get some momentum built for these guys that are coming back. And hey, Northeastern's better than they've been. So this is not. In some years, I think you would consider this a cakewalk, especially on the road. I expect a close game.
On the hardwood, the Washburn men with a big win the other night over Ottawa, 97-57. And in complete fairness, I understand that you were talking about a big gap in talent. One team is top 10 in the country, will probably be top 5 next time we have a poll. The other team was picked to finish in the middle of their conference at the NAIA level. That being said, what impressed you the most about the way Washburn played the other night?
The depth. I really like their depth. And that's really liking their depth without Sam Ungashik and Tyler Rude. I mean, those kids will both be back soon. And but even without them, everybody they brought off the bench just seemed to be really, really, really impactful on the game. And the guys that are starting, they kind of share the wealth, and I always have really liked that. I mean, Andrew Orr's kind of setting the table, but then you got Jacob Hanna, you got Jack Batchelor, and Michael Keegan, who is one of my favorite all-time players just because he does a little bit of everything. He's not going to set you up with 25, 30 points, but he's going to have a bunch of rebounds. He's going to have blocked shots. He's going to have a couple of dunks. He's going to have some steals. And I think he's a leader for that team.
12 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, and a few assists the other night. He was absolutely fantastic. And the impressive thing, too, Pistol, this team's not even shooting the three very well right now, and we know they can make a lot of those. I would have to imagine they're going to take even another step forward offensively once those shots start to fall.
Yeah, and Coach Ballard the other night wasn't even real worried about that. He said they haven't been able to be practice on their home court much because of all kinds of other things going on at Washburn. And he knows this team can shoot. Now, hopefully that'll come to fruition Friday, because Rockhurst is almost always giving the Ichabods a test.
As for the Washburn women, they are on the road en route, in fact, to Quincy, Illinois for the Hanson Spear Funeral Home Classic. They played in this event last year and looked really, really good. They beat McKendree and Quincy. They'll play those same two teams tomorrow and on Saturday. What are you hoping this group is able to accomplish coming up this weekend? I know there were some positives last week in Minnesota, but unfortunately they didn't translate to wins. What do you think is next for this team to work on to show some improvement here early in the year?
I think we're at the point that they need to. Not that it would be a deal breaker if they don't, but I think they need to just get a win, no matter how it comes, no matter who it comes against. Just get a win. You're only 0-2. Get a win, and hopefully 2 this weekend, and then you're feeling pretty good about yourself as you get ready for MIAA. So I think Laura Westling yesterday when I talked to her likes this team and likes how they're working and everything. They just need to kind of get over that hump.
Rick Peterson covers Shawnee County High School sports and Washburn University athletics for TopSports.News, an essential daily read for any sports fan in Shawnee County and the surrounding area. You can also follow Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. You can catch him with us every Thursday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We call it the Local Sports Spotlight. Pistol, what game will you be covering Friday night?
I'm going to be at Hayden. I don't necessarily want to go to Goddard.
I understand.
And I certainly don't want to go with Brendan to Tahlequah. So I'm going to stay close to home.
I'll tell you what, bring a transistor radio if they still make those and you've got one that still works, and I'll fill you in on what's going on between Seaman and Eisenhower, all right?
I will. I'm very interested in that game.
All right. Thanks for the time, Pistol. We'll do it next week.
You You betcha.
That is Rick Peterson. We'll take a break, come back, wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk next. All right, let's do a little either or over under to wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, you got one for us?
Yes, I do. Over under. So today, KU picked up a commitment from Jaden Nickens, 4-star wide receiver prospect, also a mid-level basketball prospect at the D1 level. He is committed to play both football and basketball at KU. Over under 9.5 career games played on the basketball court for Jaden Nickens at Kansas.
I'll take the under.
It's really hard to be a two-sport athlete. You've got to be like an exceptional. Like you think about the guys who've done it, like at the level of a program like Kansas, just in history. You're talking about guys who ended up being like Hall of Fame level football players. Julius Peppers, Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates. Like that's who you're talking about. I don't know that Jade Mickens is quite that kind of athlete. And I think he'll probably settle on the gridiron after getting some garbage time run maybe as a freshman for Bill Self.
I mean, just think about it. If KU's going to be a bowl team going forward, we expect KU should be in that contention. Even not a bowl team, you're missing a lot of practice and a lot of game reps leading into the season. It's going to take a ramp-up period. I wish him the best. It'd be awesome if he was good at both, but I have my doubts.
Coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Paul Myerberg of USA Today for the Big 12 football breakdown. We'll do What Is Wrong With You, and we'll talk about some first-half stat trends for the Chiefs on the final hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Second hour, final hour of a shortened edition today of 580 Sports Talk. We are off at 5 o'clock, handing things off to the K-State Sports Network for a night of Wildcat hoops. First, the number 10 ranked women taking on Creighton at Bramlage Coliseum, followed by the men facing LSU at the Octagon. Pre-game coverage at 5, women tip at 5:30, men's game to follow. You'll hear it all right here on your home for the Wildcats, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. So we are done after this hour. One more hour to go here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our video stream, which you can watch on YouTube. Our channel is 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook, WIBW News. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, Spencer Dupuis. Gang's all here for this final hour of 580 Sports Talk today. Paul Myerberg's going to join us, bottom of the hour. We'll get Paul's thoughts on all things Big 12 with the Big 12 football breakdown. We've also got another round of What Is Wrong With You to go. And we'll wrap things up, as we always do, with the final word. I also still have those K-State football tickets to give away. I haven't forgotten. K-State football tickets. 2 of them.
Yeah, the note's right here.
Yes, thank
Remember?
you. Thank you for hanging on. Brendan wrote the note. Spencer is the keeper of the note. Now we got 2 people to keep me in line. We got 2 tickets for K-State Arizona State Saturday, and I'm going to give them away here in a little bit. So be listening for that. You can interact with the show today on our YouTube live chat. If you're watching on YouTube, again, the channel is 580 Sports Talk. There's a live chat feature. Jump on in. The water's fine. Interact with your fellow listeners and with us. And also, if you care to, remind me that I have tickets to give away, like Vance did in the YouTube live chat. Thank you. I've got lots of accountability buddies for these tickets, and I appreciate that. Also, you can text the show. The Top City Metal Supply text line is 785-272-9429. Again, that number is 785-272-9429. The Top City Metal Supply text line. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply will cut exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel, tailored to your project's specifications. Start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. We start this hour, we're going to talk some Chiefs, some interesting first half trends that are not the kind of numbers you'd expect from a 9-0 football team, and yet they are numbers that the Chiefs have posted to date. We'll talk about which of those trends are real and which of those trends are things that the Chiefs can improve upon as the season progresses. But we will start with the breaking news today that Harrison Butker is headed to injured reserve for the Kansas City Chiefs. This broke half an hour ago, so if you're just tuning in, this is still something that people are sort of processing, that Butker today was placed on the injury report as a limited participant with a left knee injury, and it went from that to, he's going to IR in the blink of an eye. He's going to have a small procedure done on the meniscus on his left knee, his plant knee, and he will be placed in all likelihood on injured reserve. To replace him, the Chiefs have signed Spencer Schrader off the Jets practice squad. Now, I had this incorrect, and I apologize. Earlier today, I said that Schrader had played in one NFL game. It was the opener for the Colts. He was elevated from the practice squad to replace the injured Matt Gay. He made all 3 of his extra points, kicked 5 touchbacks on 5 attempts, and then was sent back to the practice squad, claimed by the Jets. He was elevated by the Jets to kick on Sunday against the Cardinals, made 2 field goals of 25 and 45 yards. And now he is a Chief. But my mistake, he has actually played in 2 career NFL games, and now he is the kicker for the next 4 games at least for the Kansas City Chiefs. The former USF Bull and Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Spencer Schrader, on his 3rd team of the season. He will kick for the Chiefs moving forward.
Speaking of 3rd, I now will have my 3rd kicker on my fantasy team this year.
Uh-oh.
Who is the first?
I don't remember who the first was, but then I dropped him, got Austin Seibert for the Commanders, and he's hurt. He's out once again. And then I had Butker the whole time. So I had 2 kickers on my roster on one of my leagues.
Rostering 2 kickers is nasty work.
Hey, I had enough room on my on my depth chart or in my there. And now I need to get a third kicker on my roster, or I'm going to drop one of the guys that are out. I don't know what to do.
Clearly needed to have a third one already.
Yeah. See, it's all about backup insurance.
A texter from the 785 on the Top Email Supply text line asked, remember the last time the Chiefs signed a guy off a team's practice squad to kick? Yeah, it was bad.
Oh, Matthew Wright.
Was it Matthew Wright? Was that his name?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he kicked that one field goal that was like 18 yards too wide, and we all realized, oh, this guy stinks.
Yeah, it was against the Colts. No, that was Matt Amendola. 2 years ago against the Colts when Amendola missed a field goal. That's who I'm thinking of. In 2022, I'm thinking of Matt Amendola.
I think Matthew Wright also kicked that same season.
He may have, because
he's been with the Chiefs twice.
Yeah, Butker had that ankle injury. Yeah, he did. Matthew Wright kicked in 2 games that year. He made a 59-yard field goal.
Yeah,
for the Chiefs. That one
3 out of 4.
That one didn't go too bad. Yeah, I'm trying to find his career game log here, or his 2022 game log.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up as well.
Yeah, he kicked. So Amendola. Butker went on IR after week 1.
The Cardinals game.
Yeah, he got hurt.
Slipped on that evil turf.
That evil turf, yes. That cursed turf in that cursed dome in Arizona. The Chiefs have won a Super Bowl there. I guess it's not cursed to Chiefs fans. It's cursed to me personally. Long story. They signed Amendola. They let him go after the debacle that was the Colts game. They signed Matthew Wright. He kicked for 2 games. He was good. He
3 out of 4?
Yeah, 3 out of 4 field goals, 8 out of 8 extra points. Like, Matthew Wright was good. So that one actually turned out okay. Yeah, that was the last time. So, swings and roundabouts, I suppose, for the last time that the Chiefs had to go to the waiver wire and pick themselves up a kicker. So
hopefully this one works out undeniably better.
How long do you think they've had this kicker's phone number? Like, do you think that they... You know what I'm saying? Like, they always have that plan, right? Every team has a plan of if your kicker or punter goes down, you've got a guy on speed dial. Do you think this is the guy they had on speed dial?
I would imagine so. I mean, all this news came flooding out today. I mean, it was all in the span of 10 minutes that, oh, he's hurt. Oh, he's on IR. Oh, they have a new kicker. I imagine they knew this was the one they wanted.
Yeah. And again, 2 games in the NFL with 2 different teams this year and 2 good showings. And he was a Luke Rosa Award finalist at USF in 2021. So he's made a couple of 50-plus yard field goals in his college days. Again, kick touchbacks as the kickoff guy, which is what you're looking for. Dave Tobe, you certainly don't want a repeat of the short kickoff. You wonder if maybe that's where he really tweaked the knee.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, Dave Tobe said, it was today. It was today.
Yeah, it was today.
Dave Tobe said that it was just a mishit. It wasn't anything funky. He just did not hit the ball well, and maybe he didn't hit the ball well because his knee's all messed up. Wouldn't be surprising.
So that is the big news today. The rest of the participation report for both the Chiefs and the Bills, the Chiefs still list Charles Menahu and Isaiah Pacheco as limited participants today. They are not going to be activated from IR in time to play Sunday, but they continue to work back from their injuries. Juju Smith-Schuster, a full participant today. He was limited Wednesday with a hamstring injury, but he practiced in full today. Great sign for Juju. Everybody else a full participant for a second straight day. Mike Dana, McCole Hardman, DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt, George Karlaftis, Patrick Mahomes, Wanya Morris, and Derek Nottie. I'm reading the alphabetical version of this. For the Bills, 3 DNPs today. Keon Coleman, we already know, isn't going to play on Sunday. The rookie wide receiver, he was a DNP for the second straight day. So was starting right tackle Spencer Brown and tight end Dalton Kincaid, both of whom have not practiced all week, dealing with injuries. Amari Cooper, limited for a second straight day, but said today that he expects to play on Sunday. So the Bills will get Amari Cooper back from an injury that has cost him his last 2 games. Matt Milano also limited, but he won't be active from IR in time to play on Sunday. Everybody else a full participant: Josh Allen, Christian Benford, Terrell Bernard, Kyer Elam, Reggie Gilliam, Mac Hollins, Daquan Jones, Quentin Morris, Taylor Rapp, Curtis Samuel, Casey Toohill, and Dorian Williams. The Kincaid and Brown injuries are both pretty big deals.
I think Brown even bigger than Kincaid, honestly. And I really like Dalton Kincaid coming out of the draft last year, but that's huge if they don't have Spence Brown out there.
Yeah. They especially
got to protect Josh Allen. I mean,
yeah.
You got to keep him from being hit. It's as simple as that.
Against the Chiefs pass rush, yeah, you want to have your starting offensive line intact for sure. Speaking of the Chiefs, Bill Barnwell had an article today at ESPN.com about the Chiefs' 9-0 start and essentially asking the big questions about it. How did they get here? Does the level of play support their 9-0 start? Have they been lucky, essentially? How have other 9-0 teams gotten to 9-0? How do those teams end up losing later in the season? And, of course, do the Chiefs end up going 9-0? I'll save you, if you have not read the article. I think you should. I think you should always read what Bill Barnwell writes at ESPN.com if you're an ESPN Plus subscriber. Bill Barnwell is not bullish on the Chiefs' chances of running the table, but they certainly get a lot better if you beat the Bills on Sunday. But a couple of stats from the article I thought were really interesting. Through the first 9 games for the Chiefs, these are some underlying numbers that are not numbers you would associate with an undefeated juggernaut of a football team. First, you have turnover margin. Chiefs are 22nd in the league, -4 in the turnover department. Now, interestingly enough, they've only lost the turnover margin in 3 games this year. They've only been a negative in the turnover department 3 times. Obviously, they've won all of those games, but they're still -4 on the year in turnovers. 22nd in the league. Part of the reason is because they can't jump on a loose ball to save their lives. They're 30th in the league in fumble recovery rate. That's a number that usually balances itself out around 50% because the way the ball bounces, literally. It's generally speaking.
It's because it's a prolapsed spheroid.
You tend to recover about half of the loose balls that are there to recover. The Chiefs only recovered 31.3% of fumbles, 5 of 16 so far in games this year. That's 30th in the league in fumble recovery rate. Defensively, these are, I guess, if those are straightforward back of the baseball card, so to speak, numbers, these are, we're getting into the nerdier numbers here. But the Chiefs defense so far this season, they're 5th in total points allowed, but a big part of that is the Chiefs offense being number 1 in time of possession. So the Chiefs have faced fewer possessions defensively than any team in the league. When you break down points allowed per possession, the Chiefs are actually 11th in the league. They're also 11th in the league defensively in expected points added per play allowed, and they're 13th in the league in QBR allowed. Those are still good numbers, but not what we would associate with an elite defense. And in the backs of our minds, I think we've watched the Chiefs play and kind of felt like they've played at an elite or close to elite level for the better part of this season. Those numbers say otherwise. Offensively, more nerd numbers. Expected points added again. This is fascinating. The Chiefs are 18th in the league in expected points added per play on first and second downs. The first 2 downs of a series, the Chiefs are slightly below average offensively. In fact, negative EPA per play on first and second downs this year. On third down, they go God mode. There's no other way to describe it. They are so far ahead. They are lapping the field. They are Secretariat at the Belmont ahead of anybody else when it comes to how they are performing on third down. Nearly half a point added per play on third downs this year for the Chiefs offense.
Crazy.
But that's a little bit like, I think on the one hand, you can look at that and say that's a little bit like, remember during the Royals season, we looked at their batting stats, and the Royals were better with runners in scoring position than they were with nobody on base. And that was sort of their superpower for the better part of the summer, was when they got guys on base, they cashed in their opportunities. They were good. They were at their best when they had the opportunity to score. In really important moments, they were at their best, but they were just kind of ordinary in ordinary moments. So what were they really? Well, in the final month of the season would suggest they were a pretty ordinary offense, that it wasn't really a superpower. It was just kind of a funky thing that balanced itself out a little bit when they kind of went in the tank offensively in the last month of the season. But the Chiefs have a history of outperforming their first and second down performance on third down. Like that's something that they typically do. They've led the league in third down EPA per play 3 of the last 6 seasons, and they're in line to do it again this year. Another number from Bill Barnwell's article, pressure to sack conversion rank. They're 26th in the league at converting pressure to sacks. They were 8th in the league last year. They're 26th in the league so far this year. So of those trends, turnover margin, points allowed, QBR allowed, EPA per play on offense, pressure to sack conversion rank. When I run through those numbers with the Chiefs, which of those would you expect to improve in the second half. Because if they're going to keep winning like this, some of those numbers are going to have to improve, because those are not numbers you associate, again, with a 9-0 football team.
Not the turnovers, because I thought last year they'd be better than 22 with turnovers. Start of this year, I thought they'd be better than 23 with the turnovers. This year, they have not been good at it either. That's just apparently something the Chiefs are not able to do, is take the ball away more often than they give it away. So I'm going to drop that one. I think converting pressures into sacks is going to be the big change for this team going forward. You think about the addition of Joshua Uche, who is a sack master. That is what he does. He gets after the quarterback. He is a pass rusher. You add Charles Omenihu into the mix. That means you're going to get more favorable matchups occasionally, not often, but occasionally, for Chris Jones on the inside, especially when Omenihu kicks to the interior. George Karlaftis is going to get one-on-one matchups on the edge a little bit more. I think you're going to turn more of those pressures into sacks. Just knowing the personnel for the Chiefs and also what they like to do in terms of their pressure looks, that's what I would lean with more likely than not. Those numbers are fascinating, though, and it really does make you wonder which force is more strong. The expected regression to the mean that, hey, if you finish in the middle or bottom of all these categories and your record is among the very best of the best, your record is probably going to sink back toward the middle at some point. Or is it the factor that those things don't just generally apply to the Chiefs? Like, we're still kind of waiting, just like we're always waiting for Tom Brady to suddenly fall off. He never really did. It took him more passes to still get his numbers at the end of his career, but he still got his numbers and won games. Except for that time he forgot how many downs there were against the Bears.
I think the third down differential between first and second down and third down, I think that's I think the Chiefs are genuinely that good on third down, because I think that's just Mahomes. I think that's just the Chiefs offense. I think we've seen it long enough during Mahomes' career. We even have a term for it. We call it third in Mahomes. Like, that's what he does. So I think that's real, like that they're going to remain legitimately outstanding on third down. I think they can even get better on third down, because I do think they're going to get better on first and second down and shorten the distance on third downs. And the reason I think that's going to happen is because they're going to get Isaiah Pacheco back, and I think he's a better runner of the football than Kareem Hunt is. And so I think a lot of those second and six, the Chiefs have faced, I think, an average third down distance that is the shortest of any team in the league. I think that can get shorter if Isaiah Pacheco is getting you an extra yard per carry. And I would expect that, frankly. I think Pacheco is worth half a yard to a yard per carry more than Kareem Hunt is. So I think they're going to get better on first and second downs, which should lead them to continue to be excellent on third downs. The other one, too, regarding some of the defensive numbers, Mark B points this out in the YouTube live chat. Says the defensive numbers might be similar to what it was in 2022, and they got a lot better. A doggone sight better, as Mark B puts it. Love that turn of phrase. Better later in the year. That is a truism about the Chiefs' defenses under Steve Spagnuolo, is that what they have been in the back half of the season and in January has been drastically improved from what it has been in the first half of the season. And I do think you'll see improvement. I think you'll see improvement as the back end, those cornerbacks opposite Trent McDuffie, your Najee Johnsons, your Joshua Williamses, your Chris Roland Wallaces, as those guys get more comfortable, as Uche gets worked into the pass rush mix, as Charles Omenihu returns, I do think you'll see a higher level of defensive play in the second half of the season.
Yeah, to your point, I think just adding in the threat of Omenihu is going to cause some more moving parts to happen. And I think just another threat is going to help them get home a few more times.
So, yeah, and that helps potentially that pressure, sack per pressure number get even better. So there's a lot to look at and say, okay, they're 9-0 despite having some numbers you wouldn't expect, but they're capable with some injury returns and with the typical second half improvement of Chiefs teams, especially on defense. There's a reason to think that those numbers can get better. And if they're 9-0 with the numbers they've got now, like, maybe they can really make a run at this. Like, I'm not saying they're going to go 17-0. I still haven't decided if I'm going to pick them to win Sunday, frankly. But could they go 15-2, 16-1? Like,
yeah,
is that on the table?
Yeah, without question.
I think it absolutely is.
Absolutely.
We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. We got What Is Wrong With You coming up. We also got Paul Myerberg of USA Today for our Big 12 football breakdown. But right now, as promised, I need caller number 4 to 785-272-9429. 785-272-9429. Caller number 4 wins a pair of tickets to see K-State play Arizona State at Bill Snyder Family Stadium on Saturday afternoon. We'll take a break, come back with more 580 Sports Talk. It's What Is Wrong With You time on 580 Sports Talk. Before that, congrats to Brandon in Wakefield. He's our ticket winner of a pair of tickets to see K-State and Arizona State on Saturday at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Thanks to him for winning the tickets. Thanks to everyone who called. We might have some tickets in the works for Cincinnati Senior Day next week. So if you did not win today, I would not despair because there is one more home game and maybe some more tickets to be won for that one. So be listening for that. Got to get to What Is Wrong With You, though. Paul Myerberg is going to join us in a bit for the Big 12 football breakdown. So 2 new stories on What Is Wrong With You today. Trying to take down the guy who got banned from Ulta Beauty for life for threatening to blow up a location in Opelika, Alabama. The guy who had marker all over his face and the dyed blue beard. A real treat.
Sounds like a funny story that I missed yesterday.
You really did. You've got a story today, though, Spencer. Bring it to us.
Yeah, I do. We are going to Polk County, Florida. We'll hear from one of our favorite sheriffs here in a moment. A Florida man and a teenager were arrested following a help if they're a burglary and battery in Frost Proof. According to Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, a group of juveniles have been aggravating and harassing 54-year-old Everett Brown. He added that a 14-year-old had recently kicked in Brown's door and hit him with a red broom handle. Quote, that's called burglary and battery, Judge shared. Felonies. Brown called the sheriff's office and deputies went out to investigate. Judge said while the deputies were investigating and processing the scene, they saw Brown's cocaine and paraphernalia in plain view in the house.
Oh, jeez. Insult to injury.
Quote, Everett forgot to hide his cocaine before he had us investigate the crime, so he went to jail for possession of cocaine and paraphernalia, Judge explained. I told you, you can't make this up. Judd added that the 14-year-old confessed to breaking into Brown's house and hitting him. He was charged with burglary and battery.
Like, I understand him reporting that was a crime that was committed upon his person. But yes, he should have taken great pains to hide the fact that he was also committing a crime.
Yeah, keep that hidden.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
For my story today, we go to Berlin, Connecticut. Were you guys ever big into science?
No.
I was not. I hated it.
Honest to God, no, never.
I hated science class. I feel bad because I had great science teachers. It just never clicked with me. It was just never my favorite subject. Even though, again, I had great science teachers. But a science experiment at Berlin High School in Connecticut went wrong yesterday, which led to a gas leak that sent a teacher and a student to the hospital. They were doing a science experiment involving the use of nitric acid and copper pennies in a closed-loop system designed to produce nitrogen dioxide, a naturally occurring gas. That'd be NO2 or ONO, which is what they probably said when they discovered there was a malfunction in the setup that caused the tube to break, releasing gas into the school's atmosphere.
Now, I was known for releasing gas into the school's atmosphere when I was in high school.
You and me both, partner. The school was immediately evacuated for about 30 minutes. The student and the teacher were transported to a nearby hospital for evaluation after both reported dizziness and irritation of the eyes and throat. 14 other students were evaluated at the scene and later released. The student and teacher have not been named.
Wow. That's really
ONO.
You know, I usually wouldn't admit it if I released gas into the atmosphere, but
yeah.
I appreciate them being upfront about it. They both smelt it and dealt it, clearly.
Yes. They did not deny it, but they did supply it.
Yeah. They did both the rhyme and the crime.
I gotta say, our guy who called the cops and ended up diming himself out for having a bunch of coke, I think that wins today.
Yeah, that one gets the victory today. Shout out to our guy, Sheriff Grady Judd, but he is still, as far as we know, allowed to visit Ulta Beauty.
Yes, he did not have a blue beard and red and black pen all over his face.
And a self-drawn-on crown of thorns.
Banned from Ulta Beauty for life continues on, and our What Is Wrong With You winner. We'll have another one of those tomorrow. Paul Myerberg joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. It's another edition of the Big 12 Football Breakdown with Paul Myerberg of USA Today. America's newspaper covers all things college football and joins us on a weekly basis to talk about it from a Big 12 perspective. You can follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. He joined us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And Paul, KU finally did it. They won a game. It got tight in the fourth quarter, but they made a play to seal it. How much of a weight off of KU's back is that? And does it portend a November to remember? Can KU get hot from here, or are their bowl hopes still alive?
Oh, they're still alive for sure. I got to be honest, though, guys. I assumed they were going to lose as we got deeper into the fourth quarter. I just assumed that something terrible was going to happen. Look, I look at this win as just validation for KU. Like, in the measure of a team and of a coaching staff isn't how you react or respond when things are going well. I mean, that's easy. We all can have a great day and do great when things are all clicking into place. For KU to respond the way they did on Saturday and come out and just swamp them in the first half, go up by 18 at the break. That's a testament to Leipold, a testament to the players, testament to the scheme. So it's just a fantastic win overall, and it's one obviously that we all know have been cooking for a long time. And look, again, to give them credit, they did not look backwards. They stayed looking forward. It's going to be really hard to get to 6-6, right? I mean, these two games coming up are just beasts. One of them on the road, other one against one of the hottest teams in the country. I don't think they're going to get to 6-6, but I do think they're going to win one of these next two and make another statement and finish the year 5-7, potentially beating Baylor in the finale. So I think big picture, like, let's not talk about 6-6. Let's just talk about a team that clearly believes in what they're doing. And when you believe in what you're doing and you can go out and you can beat a ranked team like that and make a statement, that's really invaluable. So I applaud them, and it's really a great win for the program, great win for the team.
Certainly won't be easy for KU in Provo at night this Saturday, because it's never easy in Provo at night. KU can ask their in-state neighbors who entered a portal of hell I didn't even know existed for about 6 minutes of football in their trip to Provo earlier this season. But BYU has been certainly a survivor, but has been winning increasingly close games lately. Can KU not just throw a scare into them and beat them? And if they were to beat BYU, what would that look like?
Yeah, I think if they beat BYU, it's going to look a lot like what Utah did in the Holy War. And that's just to play an ugly game and protect the football and put your defense in position to win the game for you in the fourth quarter. I just look at BYU, and I don't want to dismiss them as a team that's going to make the playoff, because things are lining up for them to make the playoff. But I just dismiss them as a national championship contender. I dismiss them as a team that would host KU when you look at the records, 9-0 against 3-6, and automatically assume that BYU is going to roll. Clearly, this is a game that Kansas can win. I will say one thing. Kansas State went into Provo in a night game was unprepared, right? And things got out of hand and they had no response. They didn't know how to respond at that point. Say what you will about Kansas. I don't think they're going to get cowed by anything. I don't think there's any sort of environment that they haven't dealt with. There's no sort of deficit they haven't dealt with. There's no sort of emotional distress they haven't dealt with. I just don't think they're going to get to this environment and be overwhelmed by it. If they lose this game, it's probably going to be because of the way, or it'll be the way they lost other games. That is that they fail defensively down the stretch. They can't get a key stop in the fourth quarter. They turn the ball over again and again. And that would be the ingredients for a loss. I'm not going to pick them to win this game, but you got to be a fool watching these two teams play, especially in the last couple of weeks, and say that BYU is going to win this game going away. This is going to be a tight game if Kansas does not make mistakes. And clearly they can win this game. And that's not like last week where I really thought they would beat Iowa State. I don't think they'll win, but you cannot discount this team at all. And like I said, I don't think they get to 6-6. They could. They really, really could, because they are so much better than their record. It's a great test for them. It's a nice test for BYU because KU's hot. So we'll know more after the weekend. But I don't think they go into Provo and look up at the crowd and see the beautiful backdrop and to think, oh boy, we're in for it tonight. That's just not KU style. That's not the mentality and the mindset of this team.
Paul Myerberg of USA Today joining us for the Big 12 football breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's look at the other side of that game, Arrowhead Stadium on Saturday, because it's now 2 straight losses for Iowa State, a program that notoriously has never won 10 games in a season in program history. Got off to a great start, 7-0, and you and I both agreed, Paul, when we talked about it as the season was going on, we felt better about Iowa State unbeaten 2 weeks ago than we did about BYU unbeaten at the same stage. Now BYU's still unbeaten. And Iowa State's lost 2 straight, dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive side. Is it too late for them to pull out of the skid, or is this kind of going to be a downward trend for the Cyclones the rest of the season?
Yeah, I do think they're going to not get to that 10-win mark. The running game has disappeared. Like you said, defensively, they're dealing with a lot. I think there's a lot on Rocco Beck's shoulders. And you look and you play Kansas. I understand that it's influenced greatly by the fact that you would have fight your way back into this game. But if you're Iowa State, and this isn't just this season, this is throughout the history of the Matt Campbell era with the small blip of the Brock Purdy 1 or 2 years, if they're not running the ball effectively, they're just not, that's not who they are. And they can't win like that consistently. It's just too little room for error. So if I look at the teams right now that could win this conference, like conceivably, mathematically, I even think Iowa State's got a worse shot than Arizona State. I just don't see them coming together to win this thing down the stretch. Doesn't make it a bad year. I mean, it hasn't been that long since they were kind of tumbling and Matt Campbell's reputation was really scuffling. So they've bounced back in a nice way this year and a bit last. But I don't like the direction of this team. I think they probably end the year at 8, maybe 9 wins. But no, they're not running the table from here and then winning a bowl game and had the best year in program history. I just think they're in a bad place right now.
Let's pivot now to Kansas State. Coming off of a bye week, the Wildcats are back home for their next 2 games. They've got Arizona State on Saturday. It sounds like the Sun Devils are going to have Cam Scadaboo back in the lineup after he did not play last week. Sun Devils prove they're more than a one-man show and beat UCF without him. What intrigues you most about this matchup, and who do you like, Wildcats or the Sun Devils?
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. One thing that I've really liked about Arizona State of late is without Scadaboo and with this offensive line not getting the job done without him in the backfield, Ben Levitt, since he came back from injury, he's playing the best football yet. I mean, he's got 6 touchdowns, no picks the last 2 games against Tech, protected the football, really effective in the red zone, and really, I wouldn't say he won the game single-handedly, but he certainly carried that offense when the running game was scuffling. So that showed a different side to Arizona State. Nonetheless, guys, you look at their wins, their close wins, look at their losses. The common denominator is they turn the ball over and they don't get the running game going. So I look at Kansas State, best run defense in the Big 12, one of the best in the country. And unlike UCF, if they can borrow that game plan and that blueprint, they can do things offensively in terms of controlling the clock, in terms of attacking their defensive front, putting them in a hurt locker in the fourth quarter that UCF just couldn't do. So I like this matchup for Kansas State. It's a really good game. And I think Arizona State is surprising a lot of people, not just being at 7-2 at this point, which is amazing given where they were last year. They're really alive in this thing. They I wouldn't say they control their destiny, but they got BYU and Kansas State coming up. They can make some noise, and they can get into the Big 12 championship game with a little bit of help. So this is a team with a lot to play for. Kansas State, I think the bye week came at a good time. Get your body right, get your mind right. This game, Iowa State, Farmageddon to end the year will define if they get to the Big 12 championship game with a little bit of help. So I like Kansas State to win this one. And I do think, guys, that Arizona State's success is going to influence the perspective and the perception of this win, specifically with the College Football Playoff Committee. I don't think Arizona State deserved to be in the top 25, but they were discussed on Tuesday night. So this is a win that would move the needle, inch them a little bit closer to BYU, and inch them obviously closer to playing BYU again if Colorado can just lose one more time.
Paul Myerberg is our guest. He covers all things college football for USA Today, America's newspaper. He joins us every Thursday at this time for the Big 12 breakdown via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Paul, as we're talking about contenders for the Big 12 championship, the Colorado Buffaloes, they are going to take on a wounded Utah team this weekend. We'll get to more on Utah here in a moment. Then a KU team that still might be playing for something in 2 weeks, and then a miserable Oklahoma State team in the final game of the regular season. Is Colorado going to run the rack here?
I think they lose to Kansas. Like you asked me today, they were in Lawrence on Saturday. I picked KU to win that game. I think Utah is, and we should talk about Utah. Utah, I think, is in a bad place. Like they're in a dark, dark place because they left it all out there on Saturday night, and they feel like they were jobbed. I hate the penalty in that moment. I don't think anyone would really dispute that it was a penalty, so I'm kind of torn in between that. But this is a program in a bad place. So I don't think they're going to put up much of a fight against Colorado. I think Colorado certainly having it at home is an advantage, a big advantage. But if I look at those 3 games, they're going to dominate the Cowboys, who are just mailing it in. Let's talk next week about KU. Let's see how KU looks in Provo. But if you ask me today, I think KU gets Colorado, and they would hate that. It'd be great for a moment, and then they'd be like, oh, man, we just sent the Wildcats to the playoff potentially. So I think that's a give and take that KU's got to deal with. But I think it's way too premature to say that Colorado's going to roll here and go 10-2. I think that game in Lawrence in a week is going to be one heck of a challenge for them.
Paul, I don't know about your religious leanings, but, you talk about a dark place for Utah. I learned about a place as a young child called hell. That's where Utah is right now. They are in hell. I don't know which circle of it, but Satan is hanging out as their next door neighbor right now. It is a miserable, miserable place. Yes, they should have won that game against BYU. BYU didn't deserve to win that game at all, and yet they did. And largely because Utah, could not finish that game off. We've talked about Kyle Whittingham on this program a number of times. I know Cam Rising has been banged up, but why has it gotten this bad? I know that Rising is a great player. Not having him hurts, but this has been such a good program for so long, Paul. Why is it that they have gotten to this place where things are so dark and hellacious?
Yeah, I would say Rising's 51% of it. I would say the fact that you look at this defense and you don't see the dudes that you used to see, like bar none, every year for the last 6 or 7 years in the Pac-12, they had all-America caliber guys on the edge. They had one interior lineman who was an all-conference guy. They had all-conference, all-America first-round draft picks on the outside at cornerback. You're not seeing that. And I do think that there's a talent gap there compared to the recent past. I do want to spend a second talking about Utah and why it's a lot of this is mental. Utah took so much pride, and that's such an understatement, in rising to the top of the Pac-12. Like that's the program's heyday. That's their glory days. When you look back and you say, what's the best stretch of Utah football ever? It's that we became the program in the Pac-12. And they did. We went to Rose Bowls. And that was such an achievement for a program that was tossed aside, had to crawl back, get into a Power 5 league, and then climb the ladder steadily. It was the greatest achievement in program history. They're now back in the Big 12. Not back in the Big 12, but they're in the Big 12. And it's just different. And I think that there is a hangover within that program, not knowing exactly what that would look like or what that is. I think there's a malaise there. There's a disappointment. But, oh, my God, we worked to get to the top of the Pac-12, and we decided that we planted our flag there, and that defined us. That's who we are. I had that taken away. I think there's a hangover there. And I can't put my finger on it, but I'm just thinking about that team and the coaching staff, wondering what they're playing for anymore. It's not about Rose Bowls anymore. It's not about beating USC or beating Oregon. What are they about? So I think they're struggling with that. And I think that's been one of the reasons, along with Rising and a bit of a talent gap, why they've hit a wall, face adversity, and have not been able to counter it. And you saw them fight against BYU and fight and fight and fight like it was the end of the world. And to lose that game as well, I just think that this program, I don't think they win again this season. I would be a little bit surprised because I think that, like you said, they're in hell right now in a really bad place. And I've said it. I think this is Whittingham's last year. I think that's really disappointing if that's the case. But even if he does come back, they need to find and rediscover what to play for and what defines them, because I don't think they have an identity right now. So that's a struggle for them. And that's weird because it's been all about who they were and a very concrete sense of self for a good, 15 or even more years under Whittingham.
Of the following two expected bottom feeders in the Big 12 going into this year, Paul, which one has been a bigger surprise to you this year, Cincinnati or Baylor?
I think Cincinnati, because look, Baylor isn't that far removed from showing that Aranda could push the right buttons and get them to the top of the Big 12. I mean, it's not that long ago. It just feels like forever, right? I think Cincinnati's a nice little surprise. And we've been huge doubters, and I've been a huge doubter of Satterfield going back before he got to Cincinnati about what he could do in the Power Four. I don't think that they're a finished product, which I think is the best thing. I think they can get so much better offensively. I think their defense has come a long way at times. So I think Cincinnati's a nice story. They're not an Arizona State rebound and jump forward because they're +4 already from last season. But Cincinnati, I think, is the more surprising likely bowl team, potential 7, potential 8-win team with a bowl game.
All right, Paul, it's time for our dumpster juice pick of the week. And it breaks my heart that we're going to include this team again. But we're including Hawaii again. It makes me so sad. We've talked about that this year. But, man, they just outright stink. And they're going to play against maybe the worst team in FBS this year, Utah State. I feel bad for the Kansas guy, Nate Dreiling, their head coach, put in an awful situation, taking over as their head man to begin the year. But they are 1-8, and even that is probably too nice for how bad that team has been this year. So Hawaii at Utah State, middle of the afternoon kickoff. Who you got?
Yeah, I don't even think this game's on TV, guys.
I think you're right. I don't see a listed TV network here.
Yeah, that's crazy to have this is where we are in 2024. A college football game is not on TV. That's wild. Look, Utah State, they've got the worst defense that maybe I've ever seen. They give up 40 points when they roll out of bed and they're already down 40-0. Hawaii, as of late, they've been so much better. I know that there's a lot of room for improvement. They gave UNLV like a real battle, and then they beat Fresno, they beat Nevada. So for me, not a lot of thought. I'm taking the Warriors. I don't think Utah State can catch anybody. So that's unfortunate for our local kid. But yeah, I think Hawaii gets the win here.
Paul Myerberg joins us every Thursday on 580 Sports Talk for the Big 12 football breakdown. Make sure you check out his work at USA Today. Paul, it is always a pleasure to speak and talk college football with you. We'll do it again next Thursday.
Hey, thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.
That is Paul Myerberg, and we'll step aside for a break, come back with a final word to wrap up this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk.
Wrapping up with a final word. It's a shortened show today. We got K-State hoops coming up, a doubleheader, women first, then the men. Brendan Dworzinski's already out to the Washburn Football Coaches Show, airing from 6 to 7 tonight on our sister station, Country 106.9. So it's just me and Spencer. Spencer Dupuis, final word.
Yeah, 3 quick things. Yesterday, I went to see Jelly Roll in Kansas City. He brought out Tech 9, had Red Kingdom. What a wild scene that was in a sold-out T-Mobile Center. Today is November 14th. Rest in peace to the 75 lost in the Marshall plane crash in 1970. And go Commanders. They're playing tonight against the Eagles. Big divisional matchup.
Final word for me, Spencer Schrader. Get to know the name. You won't feel quite as good about him lining up over big kicks for the next 4 weeks at least. But that's the name. That's the new man in the spotlight as Harrison Butker heads to the IR. Jam-packed show tomorrow. Mitch Holtis, KU and K-State player profiles, Matt Derrick, a Chiefs-Bills preview. That's all coming up tomorrow. Hope you will join us. For Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. This was 580 Sports Talk. K-State Hoops is next.